Again with the pins in the middle.
Guys, we have an exciting one today. We have a watch. They gave Mr. Journe his start in the watch industry. We're also going to have a bit of a circus and a bit of a battle on this unboxing.
Circus?
Yes, so stay tuned. So,
wait, first off, what mic pack do you got?
First off,
what mic pack do you got?
Which
one? Ha, D1, D2. Sucker.
First of all, I want to give a quick shout out. Why am I wearing a small samurai sword? I want to give a quick shout out to Alex's sister, who was here.
You were going to stab me with it.
No,
okay.
Who was here visiting us from Japan, and she brought me this souvenir. She's currently in the U.S. Air Force. So shout out to you. It was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for your service, and thank you for this wonderful sword. With that said, we have a really big unboxing today, and like I said, it's going to be super special. A circus, a battle, and a watch they gave at Piaget his start. So we're going to start with the basics. Let's go with.
Why don't we just go box by box?
Let's go.
Right. I have a 126719 Meteorite dial GMT, and these things got upwards of $90,000 and are trading in the around 70,000 range for a given condition piece like this, brand new 2022. Meteorite never disappoints.
So again, a watch that I originally kind of slept on because I felt like the bezel was taken away from the Meteorite dial, but then it kind of grew on me. And the watch is stabilized in terms of price, so this is where it's at now.
Yeah, I think it's just due to low production on it. That's why it's holding firm. Next, we got nice things which come in brown boxes.
So Patek, which I hate to open because of the whole condom situation. Now,
the what?
This whole condom situation.
Oh, condom. I thought you said comment situation.
I can't get enough of Patek annual calendars chronos, which is the 5905, due to the fact that it's just a gorgeous dress watch that can be considered a sports watch because it does have that crossover to a sportier look. I feel like, especially with the 5905, the chrono version of this, and just like what's not to love.
There's just so much character in comparison to its, like, let's say college travel counterparts. I mean, it's got annual calendar, it's got a moon face, blue sunburst dial, white gold. It fit. You can wear it casually. You can dress it up with a suit. It just fits everything.
What do you think throwing something like this on a rubber strap?
Oh, absolutely can work.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
This says, oh, this is Papers Inside, it's called. It is a Cartier. And look, I've talked to you guys about Collection Privé from Cartier. Every year, Cartier comes out what's called Collection Privé, or the private collection, right? And they always come out with something fairly amazing, like this particular watch here.
And as you can see, this model is a little bit older, hence the CD disc that they give you. Clearly, they don't do that anymore.
This is the Cartier Rotonde jump hours, what they call it, and the way you can tell is the window here, as well as the single hour hand that comes around. Now, very reminiscent of that clock we talked about when we discussed the Star Wheel, remember? Because this has Roman numerals on top. And I'm sure that was a play at that old clock that the Pope wanted to see in the middle of the night power.
I've definitely grown a much bigger appreciation of Cartier because a lot of people used to think Cartier, they used to think jewelry brand first and foremost, when obviously it is a jewelry brand. It's the top jewelry brand in the world, not, if not top 3. A lot of times their watches are overlooked and looked at as more jewelry pieces, but some of the high horology stuff they make is absolutely sick and incredible.
What I personally go after is the Collection Privé pieces, especially this is one of the newer ones, especially some of the older ones. They're extremely hard to come by. And if you go and check some of the auction results of some of those oddball pieces from the past, they fetch buku dollars, not to mention Cartier crash trading at about $350,000 today, the one they made in the 90s.
All right, so here we have a Richard Mille RM1104 Mancini with an NTPT case. Now, I mean, so this watch for a lot of RM, he always does this, man. You cannot drop NTPT. So this watch, actually, there's a lot of love-hate relationship with it. Everybody seems to like it, but to own it, it's something a little bit different because a lot of people feel that the dial, if you actually zoom in here, is a little bit busy.
Well, let's talk about the functionality of the watch. So this was made for Mancini, who is the coach of the Italian soccer team. And what the functionality of this watch is, you're able to track overtime and periods of a soccer match, 45 minutes plus 50 minutes overtime. And that you're able to track that mechanically within the watch. I actually did a video on this on the older version, the RM11 Mancini.
The 1101.
The 1101 Mancini, which was the first one. That was with the green, right? Was
they made it in titanium and also rose gold. The 1101.
So I did a video on that explaining how that functionality works. That's why that's why the dial is busy, and the reason the dial is busy because it has a lot of functionality.
It's got a lot of character though. I mean, it's a big watch, but just it sits really nicely. It's super light. You get a lot of wear out of it. I mean, it's crazy. Actually, these on a Velcro strap, sometimes you might not even think you have a watch on. You forget.
I'm gonna open up something that's still exciting to me. 15400 black dial. Again, the market may have corrected on these, but that doesn't mean that these aren't selling. That's why we're still buying them. Today, what's the 15400 high market? What are we talking about? Most likely
where it got to at the high?
Yeah.
15400s, so we'll use a black dial as an example because you have a black dial here, reached heights of mid 50s to low 60s.
And now they're still at about 40?
They're in the 30s.
30.
Point, yep.
Okay, so this is one of the ones that took a bigger correction versus others, let's say. Oh,
Titanium Beast.
The Titanium Beast that somebody with a very small wrist wore, obviously.
It actually probably fit me. All right, so favorite part about this watch is the gray and the black. It's so subtle. It's so clean. There's not a lot going on here, and it kind of just gives what do you call it? It's the word I'm looking for when you're paying homage to
the original Beast.
The original Beast, right? So it kind of has that vintagey older Beast look. You know,
what I mean, it does. It literally looks like the old Beast.
It doesn't look like a modern piece. Like,
exactly.
It definitely pays homage, and the best part about it is the fact, the ease of putting it on a strap.
And then you can, the fact that you get the best of both worlds, meaning you get it on a strap, on a bracelet. Yeah. Now, for those that know it's titanium, it actually looks exactly like its counterpart in stainless steel, but titanium does give off a bit of a darker hue. So if you know, you know.
Polish, yeah.
But this thing, like, weighs nothing.
Take that bracelet off real quick.
Well, let me take the condom thing off.
What's with doing condoms today? Everything's a condom.
I don't know.
You haven't used a condom in 30 years.
That's true.
Condoms and stuff. It's a long time.
I'm not that old, bro.
I mean, 25 years.
And now you have a whole new watch, and it just looks amazing.
Totally different look, totally different vibe, as you can see on the wrist.
Summertime, rubber strap, wintertime, bracelet. All right, Rolex.
I love this watch, and I'll explain to you why I love this watch, because when it was originally released in the 116 form, I hated it. Why? I was like, this is the worst shit ever, because it's the first time they made a Yacht-Master on an Oyster Flex strap or a strap for that period. It like didn't fit. Yacht-Master has always been like not the most popular sporty model.
But you would think for a Yacht-Master, a rubber strap is like perfect.
Right, and then it made it in gold, and I didn't like it. And then I wore it one time out, and it's just
comfortable.
It's first off, it's comfortable. It looks nice. It's clean. There's not a lot going on the dial. A lot of people complain. Let's say Oyster Flex Sky Dwellers. There's too much. It's too busy on the dial, right? But this is perfect.
So what are we talking about market price on these now?
So these got upwards of high 40s, and now they're in the low 30s, especially in a condition like this.
Okay.
This is on more. So, Yacht-Master 126 reference.
All right, so here we go. Another Patek. Double wrap it.
You're a very good Patek.
A Patek that probably gets
no love.
No love. And it's an iconic one too. It's a Patek. It's the Patek Ellipse.
5738 reference.
This is the newer reference where it's a larger size. And this is a watch that people either absolutely love or absolutely hate. There's no in between. Probably one of the worst sellers from Patek. But when you throw it on the wrist, it's just so. I have one of these clocks.
But every time we have them, they're good because it's price point, right? So
and they actually fly pretty fast.
$25,000 from Patek, modern, bigger case size.
I mean, the double-edged sword when something is not as popular as, let's say, other models that fly out every single day, is that we also don't get as many of them. Right? Not as many are produced. Not as many. And again, for most, I know some Patek collectors that have Ellipse models going back to when they were like this big. It's just their thing. This is the quintessential Patek. It's one of those Pateks that when you look at it from afar, you know it's a Patek Ellipse. It's one of those, like you know what a Nautilus looks like from afar? Ellipse is again one of those watches. You get into some of the annual calendars from afar, they tend to look the same, a lot of them. This is quintessential Ellipse.
You really just compare your Nautilus recognizability to an Ellipse recognizability.
It's just the same.
You just said that, right?
Yeah, but it's literally the same.
I'm just, you said it, not me. Just making sure you know you said it.
Two-tone root beer. Oh, talk to me about the market on the two-tone root beer, because again, the watch that I think that propelled two-tone Rolexes to the moon and back. This is what gave the rebirth to two-tone Rolexes, the two-tone root beer. Again, the best looking two-tone Rolex out there in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it took a deep, nasty dive.
How nasty?
Because this is a watch at the peak in the mid to low 30s. We sold a few at and bought a few at, and now it's in the low 20s. So, from a dollar perspective in comparison to other models, it's not a lot, but a percentage perspective is bad.
Oh, of course it's bad.
But now it's pretty stable.
Yeah, it has stabilized.
You have to figure this point. At this point, you can't really get that watch at list. Out the door in the United States, you're paying sales tax, you're into the watch for over $15,000, right? How much lower can it go from 20? Not much.
It really can't.
That's why it's a good.
Talk to me about this really, really pretty Datejust.
You know me and my Datejust from. You know my relationship with Datejust.
Do tell.
I love them so much. I dream about them. I love buying them. I love selling them.
I think you had too much. I think you had too much Celsius today.
I had no Celsius today.
All right, look.
2 hours of sleep.
What's there to be said about a Datejust, with the exception of the fact that this is quote unquote an affordable Rolex, and I like the fact that in the affordable line, back in the day, the older Datejust, they were just kind of blah, right? Back when I bought my first Datejust, it's like blah. The dials weren't as colorful, they weren't as shiny.
What reference did you have? First one you had?
I think it was the
1601.
1601. Yeah,
That's a real oldie.
Yeah. So and I paid $1,000 for it back then.
Yeah.
But look, if you look at the dial. Look at the combination of the fluted bezel and the bracelet, makes it an extremely pretty watch, and oddly enough,
It's mostly
very unisex too.
just one of those-
Like I've seen, like my wife has one of these as well, and even though it's a large size, just it has this Datejust. The difference is this Datejust and some of the older ones is this has a presence on her wrist. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, from a business perspective, every time we get them in, it's just such a liquid watch because, again, it fits the unisex
affordable.
role, men, women, price point right, beautiful watch, especially with the blue Roman dial, blue index dial, Wimbledon dial.
Roman dial is major key, by the way.
Roman, of course.
Yeah, definitely
But of course,
major key. All right.
wow, Roman, we're like
What?
not close to done. Just kidding.
Oh, here's another good one to talk about. The John Mayer Daytona green dial. Got the links. It's a good thing. Tell me.
This watch has history, man. This watch, I remember when they first came out.
Is that the one that got away?
Definitely the one that got away for sure, because you used to be able to pick them up at bargains under list. They were at the ADs. Nobody really cared for precious metal Daytonas at the time. And then
I had one as cheap as 28,000.
Yes, 28,000. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Wow,
Mr. Mayer came out with an interview.
This is before, yeah.
Dinky talking about this dial, and from
It was dubbed the John Mayer dial.
Then from then on, it was dubbed the John Mayer dial, and the rest is history. It went upwards of $145,000, which is crazy. And so it settled back down pretty stable because, again, you can't really get your AD point of sale down the road from where you live. Just does not get many of them.
So where's it at now? 80?
Yeah, 80, 85, 90.
Which is still double list, 2x damn near. So, you know, it's not to say that, oh my God, what happened? But it's still ridiculously priced, but it's not outrageously priced. Vacheron.
Take a big sip of coffee. Sorry.
Oh, I know what this is. I bought this.
Yay.
So, I know you guys are probably expecting some kind of an overseas, you know, a plain Jane or Chrono or Old Dual Time or Bluesy, whatever you want to call them. But Vacheron is not just about the overseas, right? I hate when the brand becomes about just Royal Oak or just Nautilus or just hype, right? Vacheron is one of the 3 brands, right?
Holy Trinity.
Part of the Holy Trinity, right? So, as they call it, which is who?
AP, Vacheron,
and Patek, right? So, with that,
I wasn't finishing my thought, but
yeah, my bad. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's so hot.
And
Holy
it is
smokes.
hot in here. Actually, the AC people are coming
I'm
today
so
to
happy I
finally
wear
replace
jeans
that price.
today. I was gonna wear black shirt and jeans. I decided to wear the black shirt and shorts. But anyway,
It's a great idea. And what this is, hold on, I'm just gonna unwrap this.
Value.
Value. No,
Real
this
value.
is horology. This is horology. And value at its finest. Because while people are paying double, triple, quadruple for certain overseas models, they're sleeping on. This is starting to annoy the shit out of me.
You really don't have patience for that? And I can unwrap it? Man, this is like gel proof.
Here come keyboards flying.
There you go, Roman.
All right, so let me wind this
Just use a
one.
little bit of oomph, a little bit of muscle.
Also known as a Cyclops. Now I'm going to show you the front. I mean, the movement on this
That's
is
incredible.
He would go ape in reviewing this particular watch. All right, so what this is a monopussia. Marco, did I get that right? It's a monopusher chronograph, which is a complicated. You get the fact that the tourbillon is one of the most complicated complications out there, right? Top 2 after the minute repeater tourbillon, right? And then perpetual calendar. The monopusher chronograph is actually one of the highest and most difficult complications to execute. I talked about the chronograph before, the chronograph being a very complicated complication, for the lack of a better word. People sleep on it because it's like a given. It's been around for so long. People say, oh, it's just a chrono. A chrono is just a chrono. It's very difficult to execute. A monopusher chrono, which basically all the functions work from one button. So I set the chronograph off. You can see the hand starts to go. I push it again, it stops. I push it again, it resets. This is a complication that go across 20 brands to see how many of them actually even have a single pusher or single button chronograph or monopusher chronograph, right? Just think about it in that realm. To pair that up with a tourbillon, it's just an amazing feat. And honestly, there's not an overseas Vacheron out there that I would choose over this watch. Size-wise, It's amazing. Vacheron bumped up on the size. Look, it's a big watch. This is like a 42,
really,
I think.
The skeleton perpetual?
I will take this over that. From a horological perspective, I will take that watch over the overseas perpetual.
We're talking about just from an owner standpoint. I mean, this is crazy. Because it's a single pusher,
aesthetically
it looks a lot better. Like if it had pusher here and here,
it wouldn't work.
It would be too much.
More Pateks. It's like a Patek day today. A lot of Pateks today. Condoms. My favorite 5905. The chocolate rose gold is the best looking 5905.
Agreed.
I love the platinum, but this chocolate is just
rose on chocolate works better.
It's just like, I mean, look at that.
Yep. Market on these has been stable.
It never really changed. I mean, it's been more or less the same.
No, I mean, look, but prior to, let's say, this bull run, as I like to call it, they traded for under list, actually significantly under list. You used to be able to get them at a significant discount. Now they're pretty much over list.
Oh, wait, here's a little one. Anna will remember this one. This is before your time. This is the Audemars Piguet Promisse, or Promisse, as they like to call it. This was AP's. This was AP. I did. This was AP's answer to, or comparable watch to the Patek 24 line when they made them in that shape. And AP, a bit of a flop for them. That's why you can find them pretty cheap. But for an entry-level watch for a lady for a couple of $1,000s, like this is the ticket.
There's a look to it.
You can own an AP for $2,000-$3,000, and it's, again, this is not a vintage one. They don't make this anymore. That line is discontinued, but they haven't been around for the last 5 years. They haven't made them. So, but this is a watch that was around for quite a few years because, again, much like Patek, AP achieves the same exact thing with the Promisse or Promisse as they did with the 24 line. They made an affordable ladies watch that you can just walk into the store and buy under 10 grand. And that's what this watch was about. Bvlgari can never get, wow, somebody did a really good job wrapping this, but can never get enough of the Octa line. Shout out to Gerald Genta. So Bvlgari in 1 year, I believe it was 2007 or 8, that bought out Daniel Roth and they bought out Gerald Genta, both companies, and they branded them under the Bvlgari name, obviously very reminiscent of the Genta design. I was happy they did that because Bvlgari at that point, their #1 goal was to achieve, we're not just a jewelry company, we're also watch companies. They didn't have much luck with their existing Bvlgari watches that were making up until then, like the Bvlgari line and all that other stuff. By purchasing Daniel Roth and Gerald Genta as a company, I think it propelled them to that next level. So now, when you say Bvlgari, you don't just think jewelry. You think, thinnest watch. Well, up until Richard Mille said, "Hold my beer." You're thinking, like me. I start to think watches, right? Bvlgari. As a watch guy, where before I wouldn't. Before they purchased these two companies, and again, these things we get requests for them every day. They sell like hotcakes. Hublot makes beautiful watches. The King Power, unfortunately, is a bit big for most to wear, myself included. What I like about these King Powers specifically, I forget what limited edition this is because that's what they do. They do a limited edition every time I go to take a leak. But if you close in, the combination of the matte black with sort of that subdued blue and the little hints and touches around, I think makes for a wonderful design. In terms of design, I think Hublot knocks it out of the park. Whoever their designers are, whenever they make these watches, again, seemingly maybe it'll look the same, but if you look at the details, a lot of the Hublots, especially the limited editions, they do a great job in terms of design. Oh, how about, I will call this a Patek.
Sleeper.
The complete sleeper, and for some reason doesn't get as much love as the rest of the stuff. Like
5230 in rose
the world
gold,
times.
World time.
You can pick up the older world times, the 50. What was the first one? Anna, what was the first world time? 5030 or 5130? 5130s. You can pick them up relatively inexpensive, $30,000 price range. And
5230s are just better looking, man. Like
they're bigger for one. They seem more refined and more polished, I would say, because the older one, the bezel was a little.
There's a very affluent look to that. I can't put my mind on it, but I think where was I walking? We were somewhere in Europe, and the first time 5230 came out, and I walked by a Patek boutique, and they had it in there, and it looked so rich. You know what I mean? Like just quintessential Patek look.
You took the words out of my mouth. You know what I was gonna say? It looks expensive.
It looks expensive.
It's just that's what this watch looks like. Yep. It's unmistakably a Patek World Time, and it looks expensive. Yep. And for some reason, people are sleeping on this, and my advice is don't, because. 5110, that's right. 5110, then it was the 5130, and then it was the 5230. In terms of value, are you still buying this under list?
Yeah, close to.
Yeah. So there's your value, and it's a good looking watch.
That's gonna be one for myself after I buy my house. My wife said I can't spend any money, so I'm like this right now.
Catch your hand side?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. All right, let's get to the special stuff. I promised you guys a Circus and a battle. Ulysse and Nardin, I know a company that you don't see a lot on unboxings, but this is still a company that we buy a lot of. Ulysse and Nardin was very famous for their animated minute repeaters, right? Watches that repeat the time out loud via chime. I'm gonna wind this before I show it to you because it needs to be wound. And by the way, if you're ever dealing with minute repeaters, make sure you don't set the watch or do anything with the watch while the minute repeater is operating because you will break it.
What did we used to call these watches?
What did we used to call them?
Oligarch Special.
Yeah, this was an Oligarch Special. Sold quite a few of these to the Ukrainian, Russian, Kazakhstani market. Quite a lot. So why we call it a circus? Because the watch depicts the scene of a circus. And what Ulysse and Nardin was most famous for is animating the scenes, where the first watch was not this one I will show you later. As I set this off, you'll notice it is a literal circus.
Viv would love that. Ting, 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 ting.
So, but Nardin does this like on steroids. They've done various versions. They've done the Circus minute repeater, but the one watch, the erotica, right, where there's literally somebody screwing on the screen.
Yeah.
The first watch they came out and actually gave them fame for that was not the Circus minute repeater. It came out later, but it was the Gengis Khan, which today is probably one of the most iconic complications from Ulysse and Nardin, which is what we have here among all these tissue papers and stickies and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and wind this one. Of course, this is more complex because this is not just a minute repeater.
Actually, I think the first six-figure watch I ever sold in my life was a Venturine dial Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great came after.
It
was this, then it was Alexander the Great, which depicted the battle, and then the last one, current one, is the Hannibal. So again, same thing, but this is also a tourbillon. So two of the most complicated things, again, with the animation of the battle of Genghis Khan. Did you know that 1 out of every 6 people has Genghis Khan's genes?
I am for sure related to him in some capacity.
Yeah, probably in the violent one. So the circus and a battle, right? And again, Genghis Khan is, if you think of Ulysse and Nardin, there's a lot of iconic pieces they've made over the years, right? And this was a bit of a shift for them because they were very, very marine themed all the time, like the royal blue tourbillons they came out with.
Yachting company.
And the original owner, who's since passed away quite a few years ago, unfortunately, in Basel, what they used to display, not in the main halls, they used to set up a party in one of the hotels outside of the main halls in Basel. And what he used to do—
Is that how the erotica was born?
Probably, yeah. And what they did there is they actually, he brought his yacht. His yacht was a sailboat with 3, posts. What are those things called?
Catamaran?
No. It was an actual big, humongous yacht. It was probably almost 100 feet. And it had 3, what are those?
Sails.
Sails, but what's the pole called? Sail pole, I guess? It was a triple sail, humongous yacht.
Yeah.
The problem in Basel is the little river that runs through it. It has a bunch of little tiny old bridges that cannot be opened.
Oh, right.
So it was a super yacht, so it could not be bought through. So you know what they did? He would hire a company that would take the boat apart. Masts, that's the word I'm looking for. The mast is the stick. So they would take the masts off this boat so they can fit through underneath, and they would put it back together in front of the party.
That's crazy.
It cost them, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. Last but not least, and very, very important, I have a Piaget box. I promised you to talk about a watch that gave F. Journe his start. Now, when you start a watch company, what's the first thing you need?
Eyes?
Yes, a set of hands that can put watches together, but you also need money.
A few bucks.
You need money. So a lot of these independent watchmakers, they got their starts by creating movements for other major brands, such as Piaget. And if you think of history, the most comparable thing to that was when AP started making complicated movements for Tiffany & Co. Patek watches. That's how they got their start. Well, Mr. Journe got his start by creating this. Of course. Like the climax gets ruined by all this plastic, right? So what this is a grand and petite sonnerie, i.e. minute repeater, made by F. Journe for Piaget. Now this is an extremely special one. And again,
look at that deployment buckle. Holy smokes.
Yeah. They made, from what I understand, he made about 12 of these movements for Piaget, maybe 20, I don't know, that went into a regular watch without all these baguettes and diamonds, etc. This was a piece unique that he made. And here's the thing, is that when I say he made, it's a bit of a stretch because what he made is what you see in the back. You see the movement. Now, the Grand and Petite Sonnerie is the most complicated thing that you can make within the watch. And if you guys want to learn more about that, just Google it or go to What's on My Desk, where I reviewed an AP Grand Petite Sonnerie. But He, from what I understand, again, and don't quote me on this, and Mr. Journe, if you're watching, feel free to correct me. He raised about $500,000 bucks.
Tail goes.
He raised about $500,000 bucks making these movements for Piaget. And what Piaget did is it took one of those movements and they made it into a piece unique with a baguette bezel, making this thing not only aesthetically beautiful,
Roman, you shot
but
me with this
they're I know.
You got me.
I know. I know.
Normally, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Normally, like
Fine.
Piaget.
That's fine.
So this is a little piece of history. If you remember, not too long ago, we had the Harry Winston Opus 1, right? Where FP Journe, they did the tourbillon for them and the resonance for them. We had the resonance, and I think we had the turb. They made it like a purple dial, all piece uniques. This is when Max Buser was part of Harry Winston, and he brought on the independents to start the Opus series. It actually started with FP Journe, because back then, you know, an up-and-coming watchmaker that basically needs money, it was easy to say, hey, listen, make me this movement. It'll cost me $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 to make, and then in turn at the factory make the watch. And that's what this Piaget watch was. Back at the time, Piaget was all the rage. Piaget.
Yeah, used to tell me back in the 80s and 90s, Piaget.
You talking about the nugget watches? Are you kidding me? That was like having a president on the Daytona on your wrist. That was like the shit to have now. They get melted down. Yeah. But look, I don't want to downplay Piaget as a company. It's still a powerhouse, you know, Swatch Group, the whole to-do. So, but this is probably for a Journe collector. This is as unicorn gets, and you know, what is it? Hashtag rare is what we do, and this is about as rare as it gets for a Journe collector.
Yeah, biggest wear as a medallion. What do you think?
I think Mr. Journe would be pretty upset if you did that. So, guys, promises kept, a Circus, a battle, and a watch that seemingly gave Mr. Journe his start from Piaget. I want to thank all of you.
A few Pateks.
A few, right? I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I know this was a long one, but at least it was a good one.
I want to go take a nap. I'm so tired.
Oh yeah, yesterday we go to New York. He decides to have a Celsius in the evening that was probably had crystal meth in it. His heart was pumping till 12 o'clock. He falls asleep, and Viv goes 2 a.m. done.
No. It wants to party. I'm running on 2 hours of sleep, and this pretty much put me over the edge.
It did. All right.
What kind of watch is this?
Well, Adrian, have a good night. Thank you for coming out, guys. Thank you so much. YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you on the next unboxing.